Hey guys, just a quick review of what we talked about today. We talked about fundamental freedoms. So in essence, a fundamental freedom is a freedom that you have based on the fact that you are human. Regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of background, you have these based on the fact that you are human. And so we talked about rights, and when we talk about rights, there are two main categories. There are collective rights and individual rights. I hope by this point you guys know the word collective. It just means group rights. Individual is like the rights you have specifically. So Tiana in this case is recording. She has certain rights, and our group has certain rights. And so we talked about some rights legislation that protects these rights. Right? So rights legislations are laws. Right? There are three main rights legislations that we talked about. The three main rights legislations. There's more. Let's start off with our American brothers. We have the U.S. Bill of Rights. It is highly individual. Inspired by the Enlightenment. And born out of revolution, not evolution. Yeah, awesome. And so this is the U.S. Bill of Rights. You'll notice that some of the rights are like the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, and so on. And so then we have the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And it is more modern liberal. It limits rights as long as they don't infringe or basically step on others. And so remember, both of these, both the Bill of Rights and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, they do limit rights. And the last thing about our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms that we talked about is that it is entrenched into our Constitution. So it's basically built in. So in 1982, when Pierre Trudeau brought the Constitution home, they actually built in a charter into our Constitution. So this is born more modern liberal. It's out of evolution, not revolution. This is born out of revolution, not evolution. And this one, our Canadian Charter, pays a little bit more attention to special groups. Some of the special groups are F and MI, and language groups, because of the special role they play in Canada's history. All right? And the last thing that we talked about for rights legislation, I'm going to erase this, is the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedoms is under the Constitution, the Charter of Canada. It is the basis of Quebec law. Right? And it basically lays out the legal system in Quebec is based on the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so that's essentially know these three pieces of legislation. We're going to come back to the Quebec Charter of Rights and Freedoms later on. But one of the things that we talked about was like affirmative action. And remember, the way affirmative action means is that as a minority, the government steps in to make sure that I'm granted certain opportunities like employment, certain opportunities, education open up to me, because historically minorities have been excluded. And so when the government steps in, it may actually infringe on your right to hire whoever you want. Some people call it the reverse discrimination. However, it gives a chance to minorities to step into the workplace, to get opportunities to advance. And so The last thing we talked about is with Quebec. We talked about Quebec has got the Charter of the French language. And the purpose of the Charter of the French language is basically to protect French in Quebec. It's also known as Bill 101, right? And so Bill 101, as we said, that a lot of people have challenged it, have made constitutional challenges, and so it has changed to become Bill 186 and Bill 86. No, 178, my bad, 178 and Bill 86. And so in both these cases, it basically changed. Initially, French was the only language of business and public life in Quebec. Bill 178 says, no, we're going to allow people to have businesses in English business signs, English language. And Bill 186 basically allows English on public signs. And that essentially is what we talked about yesterday. Feel free to rewind, go forward, stop, ask me questions. See you later.